In this video, we'll be taking a look at how to write to a file, and we'll be doing that today using VB.net. Now, there are a few different things you can do with a file. You can open the file, which is reading the contents. You can write to the file, which is writing contents to the file for the very first time, or you can append the file, which is updating the contents of a file. Now, we are going to be writing to a text file, a .txt file, so there are some things we're going to need in our program that may look unusual at first if you're not familiar with writing to a file. When writing to a file, we need what is called a stream writer. When reading from a file, we need what is called a stream reader. When appending or updating the file, we simply use the stream writer. So let's switch to our program now, and we're going to load these as well as take a look at our program design. Here's our program design. We have a couple labels here to let the user know what the text boxes are for. This is going to be TXT name. This is TXT email. This is TXT phone. We also have a search box down here where we'll be able to search for someone's name and load their information later today. This is called TXT search name. Then I have a button called BTN search, my exit button. I have one called BTN save, where we are going to be able to save the contents, and then clear, which will clear the text boxes so we can easily add another piece of information on in the program rather than having to manually go in and delete everything. So the first thing we're going to need is that stream reader and stream writer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dim read file as a stream reader. I'm also going to do write file as my stream writer, and you'll notice that right away I'm getting some red lines, and that's not a good sign. And that's because when you're using a stream reader and stream writer, there's something you have to do to make it work. It doesn't automatically work. So what we need to do is, outside of our public class, we're going to go to the very top and we're going to type in imports, and we're going to do system.io, and that IO stands for input output. When I have that, you'll notice now I do not have those red lines under my stream reader and my stream writer. So now let's go back and talk about the next thing that we need to do. Now that we have our stream reader and stream writer, we can continue with our program. Now we need to make sure that when we read from the file that it actually exists. Writing to a file isn't the issue. When writing to a file, the file is going to get created. Now we cannot just create a new file every time the program loads, as that would be pointless of even saving data to a file. If our file does not exist though, our program is going to crash. And remember, it's about understanding what is happening so we can predict those errors and fix it. So let's take a look and see how this program crashes, and more importantly, why it crashes. So I'm in my form load section of my code. That's because I want to load this file as soon as the program loads, just like professional programs do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do read file. That is my stream reader. It is a new system input output. And what I'm doing here is I need to access the stream reader, because the read file is a stream reader, not a stream writer. And then inside these parentheses, I put the name of the file. I'm going to call mine contacts.txt. Now, you'll notice I'm not getting an error, and that's because the error will not happen until I run my program. As soon as I run my program, it's going to crash, and we need to understand why it's crashing. We don't need to just copy code, we need to understand. So right here, it crashes and it says it could not find the file. So what we need to do is we need to take a look at how do we fix this, how do we have it so it doesn't crash, and how do we create a file when the file doesn't exist to begin with. Let's talk more about that right now. Okay, well, just as we saw, our program crashed because the file does not exist. Now, think about video games, specifically when you run a game for the very first time. It tries to load a file that does not exist yet, but does it crash? Well, no, it does not, but What it does is create the file to which you can save. They use a try-catch statement that is executed so the program will continue to run. So we're going to update our code so that the file does not exist, we create it, and then we check to make sure it actually has been created. Let's switch over to our code and do that now. Okay, we're back in the form load. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw our code into a try-catch statement. Now we need to identify where the error can happen, and the error can happen right here. Remember, we do not write just all our code in one try-catch statement. We isolate the errors and identify them, and we talked about that in our last video. So we're going to try this line of code right here. Now, we need to know that something's happened. So I'm going to create a message box. I'm going to say file has been loaded. Now, something that could happen is the file doesn't exist. So I'm going to catch X as exception. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to output another message saying the file has been created. But first, I need to create the file. So I'm going to do write file equals new system.io. This time I'm going to do stream writer. And I'm going to do contacts.txt. I want to make sure I name it of the file that I'm trying to load. Otherwise, if I create the file and it's named differently, it's going to still crash. So I'm going to put a message box here and say file has been created. That way we can see the difference. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to end my try statement. And now we're going to run it. We're going to make sure we should see file has been created, and then we're going to look for our file. So let's go ahead, let's run our code, and we should see a message box. File has been created, so I know it has caught the exception that was thrown, and my program loads up beautifully. The next thing we need to do is find out, has our file actually been created? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my, now I called my program directory. And when you do that, you want to double click this folder. And then right up here at the top, the bin folder, the debug folder, and the first file should be contacts.txt. And I can see that it has indeed been created. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to begin to write to a file. So let's talk more about that. All right, our file can be created or written to. So now that we have a file, we can actually start writing to the file. When you are writing to the file, you use your stream writer. You access the file, and then you can write to the file using some very simple commands. So let's try to add some information to our file right now. Now we're ready to write to a file, so we're going to double click on our save button. That way we can save the contents when the user adds something to those text boxes. I need some variables. I want name as a string. I want their email as a string, and I want the phone number as a string as well. I don't want the phone as an integer, because if they put dashes in there, it could crash because it doesn't know how to convert that dash to a numerical value. What I need to do is I need to load up the text boxes into the contents of the text boxes into the variables. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And then what we can do is it'll be a lot easier to understand what our code is doing if we don't have all this dot text going on. Now when we write to a file, it's very simple to do. We've already done it. We just do write file, because that is the name of my stream reader. I do new system.io stream writer. And then what I do is I want to say, okay, I want to update contacts.txt, or I want to add to contacts.txt using some simple commands you can easily write to the file. My stream writer is write file, and I can just write line. I'll put the name. Then I can do write file, I can do write line again, and I can write the email. And then I can do it one more time, and I can do the phone. Now, we're going to run our program. We're going to run into a slight issue because it's about understanding what our code is doing. So when I run our program, we should get the file has been loaded, and we did because it has been created. So if I type in a name, and then an email, And that's not a real email, or if it is, I just made it up. I mean, it may exist, I'm not really sure. And then I enter a phone number. When I hit save, it tells me the process cannot access the file because it's already in use. When you open a file, either to write or to read, you must close the file. Well, if we look back up here, we left the file open. Well, if it's already open and it's in use, we can't access it. So how do we close it? Well, I want to do readFile.close. I want to do WriteFile.close. Now when I run my program, we can save the file. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a message box, because all this is happening in the background. When I click on it, it's going to look like nothing happened. So I'm going to say contents have been saved. Now this is why it's so important you close the file. So what we're going to do is we're going to run our program. It's going to say the file has been loaded. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add the name. So we're going to do herbcompsci. We're going to put in our email, and that's just a made up email. And then we're going to put in a phone number. Now, when I hit save, contents have been saved. I'm going to close out of my program. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the contacts file and see if the information is actually there. So let's go ahead and pull that file up now. And we can see there is nothing inside this contacts file, and that's why I said it's so important to close the file. So what we need to do is we need to go back to our code. We need to actually close the file. So right here, all I need to do is close the file, and that is simply WriteFile.close. And now when I write to the file and I close the file, I can see the information will be there. What we need to do next is we need to load information into the file. So what I'm going to do is in my form load, I'm going to create some variables. I'm going to create the same ones. I'm going to do name as string. I'm going to do the email as string, and I'm going to do their phone as string as well. So what we're going to do is when we load the file, let's go ahead and load the first name that's in the file. So what we're going to do is we're going to do read file dot, and that is read line. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow us to read the first line that's in the file. And the first line is going to be the name. Now you need to keep track of what you're writing first, second, and third, because we recorded the name first. That's going to be the first line. The second line is going to be the email, and the third line is going to be the phone number. So I'm just going to do read file dot read line, and then same thing for the phone. Now what I need to do now is I need to load those into the text boxes. So I'm going to do txt name.text. I'm going to put in my name variable. Now you don't have to use the variables. You can load it right into the text boxes if you want. I don't like to do that. It can get a little confusing. So by having just simple variables to work with will work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run our program. We're going to write to the file so the content save. We're going to close our program and see if it loads. Let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to run our file. We're going to say, okay, the file has been loaded. Because there's no contents in there, it's not going to load anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this a try. We're going to put in that email. That may or may not exist. I have no idea if it does or not. That's your email. I'm very sorry. Okay, so let's hit save. Contents have been saved. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to run our program, and we should see the information we just typed in and saved show up in those text boxes. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're loading our file. File has been loaded, and it has loaded successfully. So now that that works, we've read from the file, we have saved the file. What we can do now is let's add another name. So let's call this one WHHS. We'll put the email as in admin@whhs.com, and we'll leave the phone number as 9876, and we'll hit save. So contents have been saved. What I want to do now is I want to actually go back and I want to look at our file to see if those contents have actually been saved so I can introduce a new concept to you. And right here, you can see that it only kept the most recent entry that we had. And there's a reason for this. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to our code. We're going to look at it. I'm going to show you how to keep the information that you originally had, as well as how do I get rid of it. For example, maybe you're trying to keep a high score and you want to get rid of the most, the old high score, and you only want to record the new one. I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's go back to our code and do that now. It's all about this line of code right here. So by default, what you do not see is this, the comma false. What that means is we're going to get rid of everything in the file. The file is going to have all its contents deleted, and it's only going to save the new thing. False is there by default. If we want to keep the file or all the contents that are in the file, we change it to true, and what that means is we are appending the file, which is updating the file. We're going to fast forward so I can show you how it works. And you can see here I was successfully able to add another piece of information to my contacts file. The only thing left to do now is to do this search button. So let's double click on search. And you can see I added where we're able to clear the text boxes. So we just set the text box equal to open quote, end quote. And then we also updated the exit button. So let's go ahead and handle the search. So I'm going to need the name as a string because I need to know who in the world they are looking for. I also am going to have what's called line of text. And that is going to be a string too. And here's why. When you read a line, by default, the cursor gets kicked to the next line. So if I find the person they're looking for and I tried to read the next line, it's only going to output their email and their phone number. I'm not actually going to have their name. So that's why we need a line of text as a placeholder. So what we're going to do is we need to open our file. So that is read file, because that is my stream reader. And I'm going to do a new system.io.stream reader. And then I put the name of the file that I am going to open, which is content. No, it's not. It's contacts. Okay, contacts.txt. Now, you do not need to put true or false here. If you do, nothing, I don't think anything happens yet. It doesn't give you an error, but you don't need true or false there. That's only when you're writing to a file that you need true and false. So what I need to do is I need to search the entire file. So I'm going to do until, and that is going to be read file dot end of stream. And what that means is I'm going to keep going until I get to the very end of the file. And I'm going to do if name, and the first thing I want to do is store the name. So name equals, and that's going to be txt search name.text. Okay, so if name is equal to the line of text that we're looking for, so we also need to do our line of text. And that's going to be readFile.readLine. And we want this to run each time. There we go. So if name equals line of text, meaning who we are looking for, then what we want to do is we want to output the information in those text boxes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do txtname.text equals, and that is going to be the name they were searching for. I also could do line of text. Either way is fine because this is only going to happen if it matches. If I do txtname.text equals readFile.readLine, it's going to kick it to the next line, and what's going to happen is it's going to output the wrong information. The next thing was phone number. So I'm going to do readFile.readLine, and then the last thing was the phone number, and that's going to be readFile.readLine. And then if that doesn't happen, you want to spell read correctly. And then what happens is if it isn't found, it won't display anything. We could create another Boolean value. This video is running a little long, so I don't want to do that. But I do want to see that we can search for a person. So let's go ahead and do that now. We run our program. And then what we have here is the file has been loaded. I see there's WHHS. I'm going to clear that. I can search for WHHS when I click search. Boom, there's the information. If I want to search herb comp sci, I click search. Boom, there's the information. So I hope you found this video helpful. Hope you learned about something about how to write and read from a file. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next video.